Why do some RPGs hook you from the very first moment, while others leave you feeling lost or talked at by a tutorial? Well, it took me 4,000 hours and one playtester to answer that question for my very own game. And let me tell you, it's not as simple as it sounds, because the first 15 minutes of a game, they can make or break the entire experience. When you think about RPGs that really pull you in, what comes to mind? Maybe it's Skyrim's dive into the caves of Helgen, or the opening into the expanse of Breath of the Wild, or maybe the first day of farming in Stardew Valley, or the excitement of starting a new journey from home in Pokemon Emerald. All of these games have one thing in common. They know how to immerse you from the very start. There's no clunky tutorial, no walls of text. Instead, you're guided subtly and naturally into the heart of the game. And as a game developer, that's the magic I want to capture. And I don't want players to feel like they're being taught how to play. I want them to feel like they were already living in my game's world. Easier said than done. Funnily enough, it was a playtester who had the key. They initially thought my game was survival because of the presentation and how they could destroy everything. They were unaware of a starting quest that was there and found it challenging fighting mobs around the starting area. I realized what a player can do in the first 15 minutes of a game will flavor their entire playthrough, so I decided to go back to the very beginning of my game. Wildaria is a procedural creature collecting RPG, and I decided to rework the first 15 minutes from the ground up. One of the first things I worked on was the starting weapon. Before, on the starting quest, the Lord of Villages would give you a sword, but I wanted to give the player agency over their class, a choice. So you immediately now get a prompt to pick a starting sword, staff, or bow, kind of like picking your starter in Pokemon. This is then immediately followed by a note that you find in your pocket about heading to a village to talk to the Lord and gather your bearings, and how to open the map. For now, this introduces the player to the map and lets them know about the quest, and also familiarizes themselves with the whole inventory area if they're that curious. Then I decided to focus on how to guide players through their first quest. I wanted a system that felt intuitive, not like a tutorial, so I added a quest pointer system that nudges you in the right direction without holding your hand, similar to how Skyrim's waypoint system works but in a 2D space. I also revised the starting quest. The village lord now gives you a nice piece of armor, and sends you on your way to the court wizard to teach you more about the world. Twen, a quirky fellow that resembles a fantasy version of Professor Oak, an inventor type,
どれそれぞわしにも貸してくれんか何
introduces you to picking mushrooms, which he uses to create bubble lassos for you. Bubble lassos are then used to tame pets, which is a core mechanic of this creature collector world. And once you tame the pig that's been wreaking havoc on his laboratory, he will reward you with the mana compass, another one of his inventions, which will point your way on your quests. Originally, I had a lot of pretty scenery in forests and deserts and different biomes that could be destroyed, but wouldn't drop anything every time, or ever. This confused that same playtester, thinking it was a bug because if I can break everything, this is a survival game. I need to collect items, but why don't I get anything? So I decided to limit what the player could break to what would actually give you loot. Also, I added an interact button to berry bushes and mushrooms so you could simply harvest instead of breaking them, but you can also still break them if you like. This rigidness made the game feel more like an RPG than a survival game. To further improve player feedback, I improved the interaction system. So now they'll see a little bit of text and a highlight around what they're about to interact with, and it'll tell you what it is they are. So if there's two things next to each other, you're not confused. And now when you pick up an item or get a quest, you'll get an alert in the console. Since I cut down on some of the foliage to make it more rigid and feel more like an RPG, I still wanted to make the world feel alive. So I added a procedural dynamic grass system with varying colors and swaying animations and new unique looks for each biome. As soon as you step into the world, there's a sense that it's teeming with magic and life, while not mistaking the grass as harvestable. To make sure the player's difficulty is balanced at the beginning, I made a starting island that's just a forest biome with easier mobs. Lastly, I put a ton of work into adding rooms to the building interiors in villages, because villages are the first place the player is sent to on the starting quest. They have a lot more quote-unquote clutter, with rugs and walls and doorways, which make them feel a lot homier and warmer. I got this advice from Reddit, but also Stardew Valley achieves it very well, or Eastward. That's just a small taste of the changes I've made, but all this work, it wasn't just about fixing bugs or polishing details. It's about finding the soul of a game, about understanding why those first few minutes are so crucial in making players feel welcome in this world. Look back at the great RPGs. In Skyrim, you're running for your life before you even know what's happening. In Breath of the Wild, you emerge into a vast open world that begs to be explored. In Pokemon, you're a kid with nothing but a dream and a Pokeball. None of these games tell you what to do step by step. They trust you to find your way. With Wildaria, I wanted to capture that feeling, to create an experience that doesn't just teach you to play, but invites you into its world, lets you discover the story bit by bit, in your own pace. That's why I rethought the starting quest, redefined the player feedback, and made every part of the world feel more deliberate. I wanted the journey to be yours. At the end of the day, it took thousands of hours and countless changes, but I am finally at a place where I feel Wildaria has a beginning that lives up to the game I dreamed of. Because, as I learned the hard way, a true great RPG hooks you from the very first moment. So thank you for joining me on this journey. If you've ever wondered what makes an RPG unforgettable, or you're curious to see the result of 4,000 hours of work, come try out Wildaria on Steam and drop a wishlist over there. Or subscribe and like this video. And let me know if those first 15 minutes hooked you. After all, I put everything I have into making them worth it.